So Perry's going to talk to us now on HOGGONE and the work that SEQ Water are doing. And just in terms of who SEQ Water is, for those who don't know, it's SEQ Water manages around 75,000 hectares of catchment area in southeast Queensland, with water storages from Gympie to the New South Wales border, out to the foot of the Toowoomba Range. So the SEQ biosecurity and operations teams conduct terrestrial pest programs for feral deer, feral pigs, wild dogs, foxes, and rabbits within that area. So Perry's going to talk about how HOGGONE is being used as part of their management strategy on their integrated pest management strategy for feral pigs. And again, if you've got questions for Perry, remember to put them into the chat function so we can, Q&A function, so that we can raise them later on. So over to you, Perry. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Heather, Narelle, and Stuart. Excellent. That was really good to see that we seem to be on the same page in Queensland here. So that's really good. I would like to start. If we could go, Narelle, first one. We've got HOGGONE there as an alternative. Kind of stepping back a few things. Obviously, we're bound by our state legislation. Back in the day, the legislation was actually put through in 2016 after a period of 2 years of consultation, and they factored all that stuff back into two deliverables, of one being restricted and one being prohibited matter. So presently, we've got our feral pig sitting down there in the left-hand corner being our restricted matter, right up to Lewidgia, which is Peruviana, which is prohibited in Queensland, but not in some other states. SEQ Water has a general biosecurity obligation under the Act to make sure that we're ensuring that those environments are kept in order to protect our catchments. Thanks, Darryl. So, know your foe. This one here is a quick one before I actually go into it. Is a bit of an infestation we found up on the top end of Wivenhoe Dam. If people know, it's one of our largest dams in Queensland, with about in the southeast, a 573 kilometre perimeter, and we manage a small portion of that, as a good 85% of that dam is actually under lease back to the landholders adjacent. That one there, I'm standing in there, is what we could probably say has been used fairly well. A nice wallow from pigs and deer during the times of dry, as the water's edges recede, and fairly driven lines there of those animals as we got into our programs. So the key is establishing our effective programs. What are the animals we're dealing with? How many, and what is our priority? What are their impacts? Obviously, in this state, we're looking at water quality, erosion, vegetation loss. What other things that sit behind that, be it pest and disease that follow those? Is to make sure that is that program we're going to go into achievable, and then plan for its success. All right. Integrated pest management is one that brings good instance to this. Pest animal programs hinge on this integrated management. In particular, there's one particular method isn't working, to diversify through either changing the location, change its food source, or change the control technique. So we do this in a number of areas because we have to deal with both the rural res and the peri-urban interfaces of a lot of our dams, and then we have the country aspect out there as well. So it can prove very problematic. So in those areas of the rural res or the peri-urban interfaces, we would probably just rely on the trapping and exclusion fencing, and then a highly restricted shooting programs that would follow those. Narelle? So here's one that we just led into from Stuart. We've got our Actor bait box there, the HOGGONE bait box. It's another tool in the toolbox, obviously. SEQ Water has had pretty good success in reducing those satellite populations with the HOGGONE. It is more readily accepted choice in some of those areas. Obviously, in the large areas where we can use 1080 and more controlled shooting programs, we will. These ones work quite well in certain areas. Sodium nitrate-based matrix has proven to be act quickly, degrades quickly in the environment, and it's less restrictive than using the 1080 in and around those areas. It's more readily accessible as a control for Queensland, in Queensland. Well, so the pros of that, over a period of time, back in August last year, we had a 3-month period. We did 2 trial sites on efficacy trials, just using the bait boxes when they came directly from the supplier. These bait boxes were just a blow molded polyplastic box with the cassettes which go inside them, which you saw in the previous photos. They work very well, and as mentioned by Stuart previously, they do work very well. The thing is that you can rapidly accustom an animal to a bait station with the pre-feeding, and to make sure you keep up on that pre-feeding. There's less dispersal of the bait and the placebo, and the effects of the animal post baiting as well. Animals don't move that far. Large numbers can be removed in a short period of time. What we found during that time, that 3-month trial period, there was a less dependence on the staff and the contractors to service those sites compared to other methods. We use a network of MMS cameras to monitor these sites to make sure that they're all being followed. We're following the right key deliverables for our program. All right. So the cons, yes, there are pros and cons to all these ones. And what we usually felt was those disruptions in those programs. If there was something out there, us having a dam and having recreation, which is quite different to a number of states. We actually allow recreation in and around our dams. So we do have an increased human element of interaction in and around. People see something nice and shiny, want to go over and have a sticky beak at it. And we do have the odd off target that seems to be attracted to these ones as well. Large animal interactions. The failure to keep the feed up during those feed stages was a bit of a human element we found. If we didn't have consistency in the program, that's when we got deficiencies in the program. We had a drop in feeding of probably about a week and a half, 9 to 12 days out of our programs, because the animals were nearly habituated to actually coming to these sites. There was another ones were attributed to weather. Obviously, the bait is a hydroscopic effect, being sodium nitrite, and we avoided using it during the wet weather and the high temperatures as well, which would have caused issues above 30 degrees with the bait. The effect may have caused sublethal dosing of the target. And if that, we couldn't afford to have the animals recovering and end up causing that bait shyness and general avoidance of those areas. As you can see in that red square down the bottom there, we had it and others come in, a young red stag in full velvet coming in to have a sticky beak at Albert bait station. They're up. So a solution we came up with, obviously, it was as you saw in that previous one, we went to a manufacturer to make all-weather covers to cover over these bait boxes. It it doesn't affect the normal mode of delivery and we haven't modified the bait box in any way, shape or form. It protects both the bait from the weather and obviously any off-target interference where we've had deer and cattle obviously interact with these during the dry times and others. This method has just worked quite well in our situation. Cover consists of rotomolded poly lid we got from it through our stock and station agents, and then fabricated another legs and a base frame, and made it adjustable to suit what our targets were, and it kept to more or less keeping other animals out away from these in that site. Well, field rolled out. Again, that pre-feed, it needs to be up there. We need to still, be able to entice the animals to site. Always make it sure that we have enough available. There's good palatable dry grain mix we were using with molasses, and we used to start the attractants off, and then got them onto a grain afterwards, just a straight grain afterwards. That got them to habituate to those areas. Those were, as we mentioned previously, the MMS cameras were checked daily and routinely worked on over the weekend as a weekly process. We did find, once we ended up with a large number of animals coming in, there would be you would know the hierarchy of the feeding of these animals. You'd actually see that a lot of the larger ones would keep the young ones away from the bait boxes. And then once they'd move away and pass, we'd end up having either restock those bait boxes and to do additional treatments for those animals. In some instances, we'd probably do up to 3 treatments once we ended up feeding out placebo. Placebo was the first one directly after we enticed them with the grain. And then we ended up having to put the lethal bait in after that. We did a run of 3 baits. Weeks, using lethal design of the cover. It's pretty good at keeping those in there. Thanks, Darryl. Yeah. So conclusion, prior to starting the program, know your paddock. Looking for a recent activity, monitor the numbers, a number of the activity sites with trail cameras and entice with food. Just make sure you intend to, if you're going to pre-feed, is to make sure don't lose hope. If your pre-feed may take up using your trail cameras, to make sure you're doing the right thing or you're in the right place. A number of the toxin baits may be required to remove animals, as I mentioned before. And then you get down to the end bits. As a part of the integrated solutions, you go. Don't be scared to change the technique to get those last few animals. It may not be your intended use to actually use 1080, but if the hog-on has met its time, or you've actually got to move to use that as a tool, we've used 1080 as a grain feed. We do as well. It would sit in parallel a trap and shoot. And one other thing we have to remember is a rule of thumb: we have to remove at least 50% of that population seasonally to have any effect or any reduction on those animals. All right. The end, and there's the end of my deer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Perry. Yeah, really appreciate that, and it's interesting, and it's great to see some innovations in terms of how the approaches that need to be taken and changes